Well, in terms of global cues, we saw a sharp whipsaw, especially in US indices. We saw the Dow rising very early in trade, and in fact, right towards the end, all three US indices collapsed, closing lower. In fact, when I'm looking at the Dow, it was down around 0.7%. The S&P 500 was down around 0.9%, and the Nasdaq was down around 0.4% in trade yesterday. So clearly closing under pressure. Of course, Apple saying that it's going to reduce its hiring, not helping. And of course, the focus shifts back on the earnings season. We're looking at a strong set of numbers from Goldman, which beat street estimates largely on the back of those MTM gains that they've made. Of course, Goldman has mastered the art of doing well during the bad times. So that continues for Goldman Sachs. That strong performance from Goldman Sachs continues to underline the manner in which they operate. So definitely a plus there. In terms of the way in which markets have moved, in terms of the futures, the US futures are in the green. So they've reversed some of those losses which they made late in trade yesterday. They've reversed that. They're in the green at the moment. Now, quickly speaking about how Europe moved, Europe was largely in the green yesterday. In fact, when I'm looking at the FTSE and the Stock 600, both moved up a strong 0.9%, so definitely positive on that front. And when I'm looking at the DAX, it was up around 0.75% in trade. So positive on all counts, at least to start the week off in Europe. So definitely a positive there. But when I'm looking at Asia, it's opened mixed. In fact, the Nikkei is sitting well in the green as we speak. So is the Shanghai. But when I'm looking at the other indices, the Hang Seng, the ASX and the Kospi all sitting marginally lower. In fact, the ASX and the Kospi down around 0.1% as we speak. The Hang Seng down around 1% or so. The Shanghai broadly flat but with a positive bias, and the Nikkei is the only index up around 0.7%. And well in the green at the moment is where the Nikkei stands. When I'm looking at the SGX Nifty, negative cues coming through for the SGX Nifty as well. The SGX Nifty is down around 0.7% and hovering around that number at the start or just before the start of trade today. So keep your eye out on how indices open. We're expecting currently a negative start. Talking quickly about commodities, well, oil prices shot up. In fact, oil or crude oil as such is below that $103 a barrel mark now. So it's breached that 100 and gone up towards 103. And the larger reason for that is that there are constraints, or there is a possible problem with regard to Russian gas supplies, which is what is creating a supply constraint which has pushed oil prices higher. Gold continues to hover around that $1,700 an ounce mark. And that is largely despite the fact that the dollar index has retreated quite sharply from its highs of almost 109. It's retreated all the way back to 107.4. And gold continues to remain at $1,700 an ounce and under some amount of pressure despite this. And moving quickly on to bond yields, well, the 10-year US bond yield is just below that 3% mark, continues to remain there. So really stable on that front, despite that very high inflation number that came through for the month of June, and despite expectations of a higher than expected Fed rate hike. So that number continues to be a key monitorable going forward, which will determine the manner in which markets move. Lastly, moving to cryptos. Cryptos saw a sharp spike. In fact, Ether was up over 9% in trade yesterday. In fact, even Bitcoin was up a sharp 5%. Bitcoin, in fact, breached the $22,000 mark and has been alternating on either sides of $22,000, through the day yesterday as well as in early trade today. So that's where Bitcoin stands. Cryptos definitely in the green, at least to start this week off, but keep your eyes out on where that moves. Currently, where we're standing on this Tuesday morning is indices currently, especially Indian indices, expected to start in the negative, 0.7% lower for the SGX Nifty. All US indices broadly closed in the red, and the Dow futures as well as the US futures haven't reversed enough to reverse that fall that we saw on Monday. So currently we're expecting a slightly lower start from Indian indices.